Okay. Wonderful. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I would like to start by welcoming everyone to the Sunshine State TESOL 2023 Professional Development Series. My name is Edwige Kirkner-Bryant, and I am on the executive board of Sunshine State TESOL, and I chair these professional development series. Also, my co-chair, who's currently teaching, and this is why she's not here, is Professor Paulina Koba. So she is, as I said, she is not here, but because of the fact that she's teaching. But I'd like to welcome everyone and say thank you so very much for being with us today. Just a little bit and just very quickly, because I know everyone is here to hear Dr. Picard, and I want to give her the opportunity to share her expertise with you. So I'm just going to very quickly just share some background information with you about our organization, and then allow for you to peruse our website so that you can get additional information. So at Sunshine State TESOL is a nonprofit association of professionals dedicated to advancing the quality of English language teaching and learning through professional development, research, standards, and advocacy. I will share the link to our website a bit later so that you can see our executive board members, and I do believe that our president is here, which is wonderful. Then she perhaps can introduce herself at the end. So, because it's very important for you to know who our president is. So hopefully she'll be able to do that. Then moving on, I went on the website. What often, and this is the website. These are our officers, and again, it'll give you the opportunity. Please go and peruse and see who our members are if you go on our website. All right, I'm going to go back. All right, and just very quickly share with you, we had a very informative conference in October. Some of you perhaps had attended, but it's just to let you know that in the future, if you're ever interested in attending a conference, so they're usually held in October. More information will be on our website, but I do encourage you to attend because of the kind of information that we share that our members do find to be very valuable. So if you have not attended, I certainly welcome for you to do so in the future. I also would like to share with you our current book that's recently been published, Surviving the Pandemic. These are stories from all over of how teachers had to remain resilient during a very difficult time, and how we were able to reach out to our ESOL community. So this book is available for you to purchase. And then lastly, I'd like to encourage you to become a member today. If you are not a member already, I do encourage you, and you can see the QR code there. We'll take you to our website and walk you through the process of becoming a member. And this is our social media information. So we ask that you follow us. We do have our YouTube channel. We are on Facebook. We are on X, known previously as Twitter. Follow us on LinkedIn and also on Instagram. So we do encourage you to follow us and so that you know what we're doing and joining us and so forth. So now we did ask you earlier on to save the date, but the date is here. We are here today, where we are going to hear from Dr. Picard, who's going to be speaking with us on the publishing process in TESOL, in the TESOL field, what, how, and where to publish. And she's going to introduce herself because she has an extensive background. So she has chosen to introduce herself to you. So thank you again, Dr. Picard, for being here. We are certainly thankful to you for presenting your expertise to our members and potential members. So at this time, I will turn everything over to you. So I will stop sharing and allow for you to upload your PowerPoint.
Thank you so much for this great introduction. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the whole Sunshine State TESOL team. It's been a great conference in October, and I'm happy to see familiar faces here and meet new colleagues here. Thank you so much. Let me share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes, today we will be talking about publishing process in TESOL, and those slides are based on my personal experience and my notes. So I am hoping to be able to help you with some ideas, my experience in the publishing process. So a little bit information about me. I am from Turkey. Currently, I work as an interim director of Office of Competitive Fellowships at Honors College, Florida Gulf Coast University. And at the same time, I am the chair of Tampa TESOL International Conference. And so I'm looking forward to March 2024 for this conference, and I encourage you all to join us. Just like I said, I'm from Turkey. I completed my undergrad degree at Middle East Technical University in ELT and Foreign Language Education. And then through Fulbright, I completed my master's at the University of Texas at Austin. And then I became a Florida resident, completed my PhD at the University of Central Florida. So I love publishing, so I am happy that I will be able to share my experience with you. So today, I'll briefly talk about the publishing process. I know there are a lot of early career colleagues here, graduate students who are just stepping into publication arena. So I would like to briefly mention each step overall, and if you have any questions, just like I showed, here is my email, you can always email me. Okay, so we will talk about publishing process and the steps. And with the COVID, we had a different, we entered a different phase in publishing. And I will briefly talk about why to publish and how to select the right journal. And we will all together, we will look at a website and see a couple of journals in TESOL, how we can, check out some of the factors in deciding which journal to publish. And then I will start with defining what a good paper is, and talk about the most important parts of the paper. Not every section of a manuscript, but some sections are a little bit problematic so far as I could see from my graduate students, colleagues. So I'll be touching those points. And then at the end, I will open the floor for sharing stories and your experiences with publishing. So to briefly talk about the publishing process and the steps, when you submit a manuscript, it goes to the editor, and sometimes you may get a desk reject. It's called desk reject. It could be because of the nature of your research. For example, if it is not talking about statistical analysis, but you still have some data that you could have done some statistical analysis, that could be a desk reject. Or if you have a lot of errors, typos, it could be a desk reject. So we need to make sure to check every part of the paper. And after the editor approves that, okay, this is a this is a good manuscript that we can send to reviewers, because editors do not send every single manuscript to reviewers, because it's hard to find reviewers and it is hard to get the reviews back from the reviewers, especially after COVID term. So reviewers receive the manuscript. They have usually 2 months, but after COVID, it's been taking forever, like 3-4 months, depending on the reviewer. And then if the reviewer doesn't respond, the editor could send the same manuscript to a third or fourth reviewer. So it may take a little bit longer. But if, let's say, 3 of the reviewers said like reject or major error and major changes, they may reject it, then your process stops there. And you can take that manuscript to send it to the next journal. And you remember, sending the same manuscript to a couple of different journals at the same time is unethical. That's one of the ethical concerns that we will be discussing. So let's assume that you got your paper and you have a lot of comments, criticisms, you make the changes and submit it again. That doesn't mean that it will directly get accepted. It could be another rejection after all the second changes. So the process may take more than 2 years in some journals. For example, quartile 1 journals are the most powerful journals with a high impact factor, and it may take 2 years or 3 years depending on the journal. So this chart is a little bit of a general description of what you might expect, because you know, I've become I was a graduate student before. I expected my manuscript to be accepted, but then, you know, I also felt disappointment sometimes. So this is a part of the process and it's normal. But we need to keep trying, because not every journal is our house for this specific manuscript, for example. Could be another journal. So we're going to talk about how to select the journal too. So this is a little bit about like based on my experience, and I am pretty sure I actually checked a couple of journals to see if I could find a really empirical data on the statistics of journal submissions. So this could be a gap in the field, just giving you a tip here. So between 2019 and 2020, there was a pause on submissions because of the priority changes. COVID happened and everybody was more focused on our health, and people did not stop publishing, but the writing process might have stopped. But with the 2020, since everybody was working from home in front of computer, people, I think this is my personal opinion again, people kept writing around that time. So at the end of the COVID, when all the restrictions are were removed, people started submitting their manuscripts to journals. And then journals were overflowing with a lot of manuscripts. So currently it's getting a little bit better for the last couple of months, but so far the review process has been slower compared to a couple of years ago. So it's a part of the process, unfortunately, and all we need to do is just to try our chances. And I am wondering, what are your experiences with the COVID process? Have you experienced any urgent cases? Like, for example, one of my students needs to, like, she completed everything, and in that institution that she is working at, she needs to publish before being able to graduate. And because of the COVID, the process was longer, and she's only waiting for this paper to be published to be able to graduate. That's one of the criteria. So did you have any kind of experiences with COVID slowdown in publication? You can type your responses to the chat. I am not sure if I have access to the chat here while sharing screen, so I will stop sharing and check out the chat. Okay, anybody experienced difficulty in reaching out to editors or getting feedback from reviewers? Or you could be an editor at a journal and you might maybe talk about your perspective looking at publication process. Okay. Well, let's continue. I'll check the chat later on again. Okay. So when
I
it
thought
comes,
I saw, I'm sorry, Dr. Picard, I thought I saw one comment in the chat. I don't know.
graduation date was extended due to COVID. Okay, that is, I believe that could be institutional. Institutions help with extending graduation dates because at certain institutions, students need to publish at least one SSCI paper or Scopus paper. You know, those are the index names. And depending on the institution, that could be a problem. Okay, thank you. So for the reasons for publication, some people publish for academic recognition if they are trying to achieve publishing, like a publication place in the among the colleagues. And then another could be merit pay, or you could be a tenure track faculty and you need to publish, again, depending on different institutions, like 5 SSCI or 1 SSCI and 3 Scopus papers. Those are index names. So depending on the conditions, you may need to publish and you have a reason to publish, or some people publish for personal satisfaction. So right now, for example, at my workplace, I don't need to publish institution-wise, but I like publishing. I like working on things. So that will help me with merit pay and personal satisfaction. So I was wondering, what are your reasons for publishing or wanting to publish in TESOL? You could type that in the chat. Right, that's actually one of the first questions that we need to ask ourselves. Why do I want to publish? Because, okay, publishing is great. You put it on the CV, but is it good quality? Is it a good journal? What if you publish at a terrible journal that later on charges people for publication? So that's actually a bad reputation. So why do you publish? Mm-hmm. You want to be an academic in the future, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, especially if you are doing a grounded research, grounded theory research, or creating something from scratch. It's very important that you publish constantly. Mm-hmm. Continuous growing in the knowledge and experience, and contributing to the body of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So these two responses to me sounds more like a internal satisfaction and also external reasons such as, becoming an academic. Anybody who's a tenure track faculty here would like to share? I guess with tenure track, it depends on the institution, the criteria or the reasons. Okay. One more, share knowledge with others. Mm-hmm. Great. So with sharing knowledge with others, there are other venues like conventions that you can attend, you can present, but with publication, since it's a written language, you know, it will stay with the field, TESOL field. So that's great that, you know, to be able to publish is always great. Okay, thank you all. So now that we know our reason to publish, how are we going to select the right journal? That's an issue, because we need to be watching out for the predatory journals, which is like you may be receiving call for proposals from a fake journal. It invites you to publish, but then later on you work on a publication and then they try to charge you because you want to publish with them. Actually, it should be the opposite, because that's your work. They should give you money, but it's not the case. So do not publish at journals that charges money on you. So we need to look at the journal's target audience suitability. So if you are a scholar in TESOL, you don't want to be publishing in medical sciences. So like every journal and field is different. So in our field, we need to look at like who are the readers of this journal. How can you decide on that? By reading the previous issues and previous publications, because you will see an author will cite somebody else, and you can find the citations that are cited in that specific article. Again, you should look at the latest publications. For example, if a journal starts publishing on COVID-related themes or technology, because with COVID, we had more technological improvements or more awareness about technology. So then if you have a publication regarding technology, then it's a good fit for you. But we also have to look at other things like effective communication. So with some journals, especially with big journals, it's really hard to reach the editor to see if they would be interested in your abstract, because sometimes we send an abstract if it is allowed on the website. It says, please do not email the editor, do not send your manuscripts or unsolicited manuscripts. So make sure you read those lines, because you don't want to violate the rules of the journal either. But it is important that if you email a journal, can they get back to you soon? If they are not even responding to you, maybe don't consider that journal. And then also in some journals' websites, there's acceptance rates. So how many papers are sent to this journal and how many are accepted? So that should be also your criteria in deciding to send the manuscript. And the other thing is societal and global reach. Who are reading this journal? Is it like more global? Is it more international? We need to consider this, because you want your research to reach everyone in the world. So to be able to do this, you might want to publish in international journals rather than local journals. However, if you're a graduate student and kind of trying to learn the process while experiencing it firsthand, I recommend trying local journals first, so you learn how to function or work with the publication process, and then you can send it to international journals. And the last and maybe the most important criteria that we need to consider is the timeline. So how long does it take usually to publish at that journal that you're looking at? It's okay if you can't find this data on the website. Look at one of the articles, download one and look at it. It will tell you on the first page, accepted at this time, submitted at this time, and published at this time. So you can see like if it is taking forever or not. Because if you're trying to graduate with a publication, you need to pay attention to the timeline. I think we had two. Okay, target audience of the specific articles. Yes, target audience. We need to look at the target audience. And okay, thank you. Okay, so right now I will show you the website that I use a lot, and I teach my students how to use this website. It's called schemagojr.com. So when you are on this website, okay, this is the main page. You click on journal rankings, and then you will choose your area here. Since we're doing this for TESOL, there's social sciences, and then linguistics and language.
Dr. Picard, we're only seeing the link only. We're not seeing what you're referring to right now.
Okay, let me. How about now?
I see the journal.
Website.
Live your life. Okay.
Okay.
Now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
I'll show it again. So journal rankings. So the website is schemagojr.com. So you can choose any subject. So I'm going to choose social sciences. And then linguistics and language. So I'm narrowing down my journal search. But this website is pretty, it includes most of the journals. So you can choose like any region, but I'll keep it like all regions and only journals. And the latest they have is 2022. So as you can see, it also shows me the most, like the high quality journals, H index, and then citation rate. It gives me a lot of information, and it also shows the origin of the journal. So for example, maybe your manuscript that you just completed is in British English, right? We have American English and British English have differences. So in that case, if you're going to choose an American journal, they may ask you to make changes, and that's also another time that you need to allocate. And also with those journals, some of them are still using APA 6th edition, some of them are using 7th edition, so we need to make sure to look at those details. So I'm pretty sure you know some of these journals, like Modern Language Journal is very popular in TESOL, Journal of Second Language Writing, Language Learning. Those are very good journals, and it is quartile 1. And then let's look at some of the if you keep going this way, it will show you, quartile 2, 3, and 4. It goes up to 4. So this is one of the places that I direct my students to, so that they can examine each journal, find out what the journal's scope is, and what's the submission process. Because just like I said, with certain journals like APA or grammar or spelling of the words could be different. So since we learned just a little bit about journals, now let's describe a good paper. Like, what's a good paper? What does it mean to have a good paper? Especially for really good journals, you want to make sure you meet all these criteria. The first one is, oh, by the way, can you see the slide? Okay, thank you. So the originality of your paper. for example, you might be conducting a study that already was completed before, like conducted by other people, and everybody knows the results. So you don't want to do that. You want to find some original ideas, some creative ideas. And in some cases, it's called the gap in the field. You need to try to fill in the gap. And in doing this, we need to be relevant. So especially in the literature review so far, the research papers that I reviewed, and by the way, I've been reviewing for like 12 journals. It's a lot of work to review papers, but it taught me so much that like I started seeing my own mistakes at the beginning that I was making. So be relevant in a good paper. You might be citing a recent citation, but it may not be completely related to your study. So make sure all your references are and all your statements are relevant to your paper or what you aim to achieve with your paper. With the research methodology, you need to make sure it is valid and objective. In doing that, like with qualitative research design, you need to do member checking. How do you know that the results are valid? Or with the quantitative studies, you need to make sure doing this normality analyses, reliability checks, and all kinds of like validity calculations. And also, when we draft our paper, we need to make sure it's clear and it's structured well, because I see a lot of like, there's one sentence and that is the only sentence in a paragraph. So one sentence cannot be a paragraph. Because what we need in a paragraph is a main idea, support, evidence, and analysis of your own ideas regarding that main idea and linking it to the other paragraph. So structuring is important. And when it comes to implications, are you providing theoretical implications, pedagogical implications, or practical implications? And you need to separate these really well, because finding out that this group scored better than the other group doesn't mean anything. So how do you interpret this? And what are you trying to provide to the field when you say that this group was better? Why was it better? So explaining in a logical way. And recency and relevancy of references. Just like I mentioned before, a publication might consist of a lot of recent references, but if they are not completely related to your area, then you either need to explain the relationship well or find the more related ones. And for some of the papers that were written during COVID time, I see now that, like, as a reviewer, when I read those, I can tell that, okay, this person wrote this like in 2020, but because there's no other recent references from 2020 to 2023, there's no references. So make sure you check that, because journals prefer recent articles. And another thing is, like, is it good for international focus? What's your mission in this publication? Are you trying to focus on a local school and help the students in that local school? Or can your results be generalized for larger areas? And of course, in doing that, like calling a good paper is like, it could be a very great paper, but if it is not matching with the scope and the mission of the journal, that's not a good paper for that journal, but it could be a good journal for another one. So we're not losing our hopes. Okay, we have one message here. Oh, okay. So this is a structure of a good paper. Do we write the title, abstract, conclusion, introduction first? Not actually. We start from the back of this image to the beginning of this image, actually. So first we do the analyses and see like, oh, is it the statistically significant result? What if it's not? What does it mean? So we think about those. We examine the tables and figures first, and then we decide to write the results and discussion. And based on that, like you of course, when you submitted your ethical approval or institutional review board approvals, you describe the methods there, but you might need to improve your methods based on your results, especially with the qualitative research. Since it evolves as you conduct the study, you may need to improve the methods. And since introduction and conclusion are kind of like parallel to each other, because you introduce your findings, actually, you need to find a matching source or literature review based on that. So these two are parallel. And finally, you can decide on the title and the abstract and your keywords based on your findings. So we always want to start with the data, with the finding that we have. Okay, so I will not be talking about like each section of the paper, but the things that I noticed and that are problematic so far. From a reviewer perspective, from an author perspective, and from a professor perspective who guides graduate students for their thesis and dissertations. And I actually see one of my dissertation students in the attendees. Okay, so title. What type of title I should have that like it gets attention? We don't want to make it so crowded because a lot of words are not going to stay in people's mind. Find the most attractive and attention-grabbing opening phrase, maybe. And make sure the keywords in the title are directly related to your paper and the results. And also the location of the keywords are important. Usually when we look at words, even if we don't have the intention to read, we remember the first words usually. So make sure you put that keyword at the beginning of your title. And when it comes to the keywords section, right under the abstract, you might want to check out other researchers' keyword lists, like check and see how similar researchers, like, or the researchers who conduct studies similar to yours, what they did and how they like listed the keywords. Because as you all know, when we do a journal search or article search on an online library, we enter keywords. So you want to make sure you add those keywords under your abstract so that the other people could search these easily, comes to mind. And yes, paper significance and methodology. So for example, sometimes we read the title, we don't know what type of a research that is. So it would be ideal to put methodology in the title, like a quantitative, or maybe like if it is qualitative or like a positionality theory, you know, you want to put that in the title. And even though certain abbreviations are allowed or acronyms are allowed in Tesol, you can check Tesol's website actually. Like for example, you don't have to write out or spell out Tesol. You can write Tesol and it's understood by the field or the colleagues. But you don't want to use an acronym that's not known to anyone. And if you do, you need to write it out. So make sure you meet these criteria. In the results section, the most the striking thing that I have noticed is results and discussion are always like mixed up. sometimes, like especially by graduate students. It is very important to put a clear-cut difference between them, or distinction, how to distinguish between the two. Results are just reporting the results, just the essentials. What did you find? Do not add your interpretation. And especially like by looking at, let's say, a p-value, you may say, oh, this may mean this and that. So you need to keep that section for the discussion, because discussion is the interpretation of the results, not the results section. And then, of course, with the, the statistical significance is important in quantitative papers, and in qualitative, the quality of the data is important, and some examples to kind of describe, like, for example, in qualitative papers, some papers put the direct quotes of each participant of the research, but they don't mention what it refers to. That's also another mistake, the common mistake. Do not repeat yourself, which means, let's say you have a table, ANOVA table, and it has the p-value, f-value, and degree of freedom, everything. You don't have to write everything again, because there's word limit, and you're not going to repeat. You can refer to table 3 and still explain what you mean. And ask yourself, what are the really significant facts or emerging results, or what is the effect size, what is the p-value? So make sure you ask these questions to yourself in the results section. And just like I mentioned, the discussion section is mainly about the interpretation of the results. Make sure you explain and interpret every result. You can't just, ask a research question and report the result, but not interpret it, because we need to explain what it means for everyone, what it means for us, what it means for colleagues and students in the field. Are there any limitations? For example, with the survey studies are biased because it's perception, blah, blah. But there may be more limitations than that. So some of the limitations could be related to your sample or population. To be able to do that, you may not notice certain limitations because you're so involved in the research. Discuss with your colleagues and maybe students or somebody who is not into your research. Just explain to see what might be other limitations that you are not seeing there as a researcher. And it should logically flow in interpreting the results. And we are not going to state anything that goes beyond the results. So, for example, correlation and causality. We always say that, like, the fact that there's a correlation between the two things do not mean, it doesn't mean that there's a causation in that. So make sure what you interpret is actually happening in the results section. And since this is the discussion section, we're getting closer to the end. We want to refrain from introducing unexpected terms. Or maybe you want to use a term there as a result of your discussion, but maybe mention it at the beginning too, so that like a discussion and introduction are parallel and they refer to each other. Okay, let's see. 2 more slides. So, okay, we wrote the paper, now it's editing. So what are we looking at? Grammar, spelling, punctuation errors. Those are really important because it could be desk reject from the editor when you submit a manuscript full of errors. Or maybe the layout issues. So if the journal is asking you to submit an APA 7 table, you just copied and pasted SPSS file there. that will be a rejection because it doesn't match with the rules, the author guidelines that they state. And also the statistical accuracy. Sometimes reviewers may ask, oh, can you please attach the raw data or the other tables so that they could understand? Sometimes you have to do that. And you want to provide accurate data. You don't want to make up data because that's not ethical. And we need to check the accuracy and the completeness and make sure you put check marks for all the author guidelines so that your article at least goes through the editor process and reaches to reviewers. And utilize spell checkers as a tool, not sole reliance. Because sometimes you might be using an acronym and your Word document might be correcting it as something else. So you don't want to rely on those completely. Use them as tool. Just like AI technology or ChatGPT, you can use those to create ideas or brainstorm ideas, but not as a sole resource. And you want to try to get some ideas from other colleagues who work in your area too. Okay, so what are the best practices for the review process so that we're not frustrated, we're not sad or disappointed? We need to be realistic, because let's assume, I don't want to assume, but I will give an example from my PhD years. So I wrote an article, I thought it was great, but then I sent it to a journal. I got like rejection and explaining why. I was so sad that day. But then the next day, I was like, okay, I'll do it better. I did it better. And in my second submission to another journal, it worked out. So we need to be realistic in sending it to which journal. Because as a new graduate, I wouldn't be able to send it to TESOL quarterly because it's a quartile 1 journal and it is very strong, and my data was not that strong at the time. So we need to pay attention to those and be realistic. I mentioned author guidelines, communication with the journal team. Most of the big journals don't want you to email them because they really don't have time for that. But you can maybe ask around your colleagues about that journal if you have any questions or if you're not receiving any response. And send an outline or abstract if that journal is okay with providing their opinion on your manuscript. Just send the abstract, don't send the whole thing, because abstract should be able to give a clear idea. And that brings another question: how do I write the abstract? The abstract has its own structure, actually. Maybe it will be covered in another webinar. If you guys want, I can also talk about that. And read a previous issue of the journal or a couple of articles from the journal so that your submission kind of looks like the ones that were published previously. And attach a cover letter explaining and emphasizing the significance of your paper. So let me see. Okay. Yes, revision time. It's always good to hear from the editors or reviewers, even if the result is negative, because it's better than like wondering what happened to my paper. I didn't hear from the editor. So either negative or positive, you want to hear from the editor. And almost every paper is revised, so don't expect any paper to get accepted right away. There's always revision. There's like a very few papers that I know, a couple of people that got accepted like immediately with those manuscripts. Don't forget that comments are not personal, so don't take it personal because those reviewers don't see you or they don't know you, because you made your paper blind, so they should not be able to understand who you are. So it's not personal. So you may be disappointed or sad on the first day, But the second day, make sure you start working on those review comments, because you have a deadline and you want to meet that deadline. In the case of not meeting the deadline, you want to contact editor as soon as you receive the review or revision request. For example, a month ago, we received a revision, and I was moving to Fort Myers and I couldn't have time to focus. So we requested 2-week extension, and the editor was okay, and it was extended, and it worked out for all of us. So don't hesitate to email them when you receive the revision request. And if you have any kind of ideas about like that are different from the reviewers, remember, you don't have to accept all they suggest. You can reject the recommendation or the suggestion and explain why you had to reject the reviewer's comment. And yes, when you type besides your edited manuscript, you need to submit a reviewer response that details what you changed, what did you not change. So you want to do this point by point, and sometimes color code the changes. So you can highlight the, let's say, reviewer 2 changes are in yellow and reviewer 1 changes are in pink color. So you can submit it that way. And ethical reasons, we talked a little bit about this. If you're writing a paper with your co-authors, you want to get their opinion too. You don't want to make decisions by yourself. If it's the co-authored paper, you want to disclose any conflict of interest, and you can find those issues that, like, what's a conflict of interest, what it covers, what it doesn't cover, in the COPE website. But it could also be found in your institution's, like a research board or institutional review board. And do not submit that same article to a couple of different journals at the same time. It's not ethical. Don't plagiarize yourself. So that what does that mean? It is, you write a manuscript and you cite yourself, but you're just putting the same thing because you wrote it. But that's not okay. You need to paraphrase yourself too if you're going to cite yourself. And use AI, but don't use it to plagiarize, because that's not ethical. Okay. And last slide. So when we look at the publication, what can you do to promote it or to make it well known among the colleagues? So before you publish, you can build network. You can have some contacts. You can have some professional colleagues on social media. It could be through Facebook, through Instagram, or your website. I recently established a website. So make sure you use those, especially social media. Now it's a part of our lives. During the publication process, you can maximize community outreach by, again, announcing it through social media. You can check if your institution has a subscription to that journal. If not, talk to your library so they have a connection with that journal. That way your institution, like the people in your institution, could read your paper too. And you can also contact the people that you cite, because you want to create a virtual connection or network. And after you publish it, of course, continue collaboration and expand it, because that's the only way to stay active. And as you notice, there's, like, in every step we have social media. And that's, believe me, because everything is very global. Like, we have to use social media. Just like how we cannot escape from AI, we can't escape from social media. So by utilizing social media, we can promote our work. Okay, thank you. So I know we're little bit of not running out of time, but there's 4 minutes left, but I can stay longer if that's okay. And if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Prakash, for being here and sharing your expertise with us. It was outstanding. But at this time, as Dr. Prakash has just said, please feel free to ask questions. You may certainly send your questions to the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just ask questions. Okay, yes, I see one hand up, please.
Hello, Professor. Thank you very much for fruitful presentation. My question actually does not directly related to your presentation. It's a personal conviction. I would like to know what's going on in United States, because we are in a different time zone and context. Sometimes I have been witness to this bitter fact. The types of publication which happens in our field are mostly for lifting or producing something which are far from the real problems in our field. Do you have such a feelings that sometimes we are just publishing for the sake of publishing, whether this paper, article, indicate or embodiment any real problem of applied linguistics, second language acquisition, or just we are trying to promote ourselves and we don't, let's say, as a researchers, do not contribute that much to our field? I would like to have your idea as well. Thank you. Though my question was not directly related to your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your question. I actually like the question a lot because it is, I think I would look at it from two perspectives. If I look at it from a researcher perspective, yes, we do need to deal with real world problems. But then again, when I look at it from a researcher's perspective who lives in, let's say I'm from Turkey and I live in Turkey. The real problems in Turkey, real world problems in Turkey might not be the same with the problems in the US. So in that case, I would ask, what type of real problems are we talking about? Because a researcher may publish a very maybe minor area in a minor area, but it may be important for that country. So there is no right or wrong answer for that, actually. Unfortunately, some people have to publish for the sake of publishing, I think, because of, again, external reasons, just like motivation. You know, there's internal motivation on publishing and solving real world problems, which may take longer. Like I wanted to do mixed method design study for my dissertation. But because of time limitations, I had to do only quantitative. So of course it was limited to quantitative studies. So if you ask me, the real world problem was actually I would find out better things if I interviewed the participants, but I couldn't do it. So it depends on conditions, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have time because we are kind of out of time, but we can entertain one more question. I don't know if there's one in the chat, but we can entertain one last question.
I will type my email here, and you know, if there's anyone who couldn't ask their questions, they can always email me. Link. Oh, okay. That's when I was. I will also add the link for that website here, so you can and save it. That's the journal website I use.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And right now I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. And so since we are out of time, then we'll stop here, Dr. Prakash. And again, Thank you so very much for sharing your expertise with us. It was a very worthwhile hour spent with you and learning from you. And I have to say that since you opened the door to this, that I think we would be very happy for another presentation from you on abstract, on how to write the abstract. Since you opened the door, I'm just taking you up on your offer. And I think our members would find that, again, very valuable information as well. So if you're open to that, we would love to have you come back.
Yes, that would be great actually. Recently I provided a webinar on how to write TESOL proposals for the convention because I work with participants one-on-one, and I can also do abstract and along with the proposal also. If there's a request for that, yeah, sure.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you so very much again. And I'd like to thank all of the attendees for being here today. We appreciate that you've taken the time out to come to listen to the presentation. Have a wonderful evening. And again, for those of you who haven't joined Sunshine State TESOL, we encourage you to become a member of our organization. Thank you so very much for being here with us. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
I would like to thank everyone, especially the ones who tried to join this webinar from other parts of the world. I really appreciate it because I know it's late in some countries, and thank you so much for joining. And thank you, Sunshine State TESOL, for having me.
You are very welcome.